This morning, we are going to conclude our February theme about oneness and seeking the common good. So I want to start off by saying to you, Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. It's a Japanese phrase. And we're not going to have a Japanese language lesson or anything like that this morning, but I thought I would share this phrase with you because it illustrates one of the important points that I want to make in my talk this morning. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. If you're fluent in Japanese or you really understand that culture, I apologize for my rudimentary knowledge of it. But the language is very different from ours. And I was fascinated by this phrase, though. A fellow minister pointed out because this particular Japanese phrase has the power of creating a certain feeling at the beginning of a conversation that you're having with another person. It immediately sets the tone of common ground, of kind of calling the space that we are entering in this conversation. Common ground, kindness, and in the very start of it. And Yoroshiku onegaishimasu has an idea captured in it, not necessarily like a real translation syllable for syllable. It's kind of fluid depending on the situation. So you get the idea. So when you say that at the beginning of the conversation, it could mean, it's so nice to meet you. It could mean, thank you in advance, please help me. It could mean I am in your debt, or please take care of me, I'm counting on you, be kind to me. I trust that our interaction and our future together is going to be good and mutually good. And some of the sources say that it's kind of a meaning from the heart, and the two people kind of glean from that phrase what they need at the beginning of a conversation. But at the base of it all, it opens the conversation with this firm claim of the concept that we've been talking about, interdependence and commonality and oneness and connectedness. So here's the deal. If we're going to find common ground to share with those that we interact with, it helps tremendously to have a personal habit of language, whatever it looks like to you, that immediately anchors the interaction in goodwill, in love. And you know, you might not be comfortable going around saying Yoroshiku onegaishimasu to everybody. People might look at you kind of funny. But how you enter interactions with that internal intention of loving kindness, and you verbalize that intention as you open your heart at the onset with any other person. You know, somebody you're meeting for the first time or a zillionth time, to set such a tone would be very, very helpful. And I think it helps to develop this mindset of loving kindness. So I've told this story before, so if you've heard it, I apologize. But I saw this interview one day where T.D. Jakes was interviewing Joel Osteen. So if you don't know who those two men are, I'll explain. T.D. Jakes is an African-American bishop, and I believe he operates as a minister out of Dallas area. And then he was interviewing Joel Osteen. And Joel Osteen is the pastor of a non-denominational megachurch in Houston called Lakewood Church. He's also a best-selling author. He's very well known. And so T.D. Jakes was interviewing Joel Osteen. And Lakewood Church averages 52,000 people a week in attendance, and 7 million people a week watch his talks. Now that sounds very popular, right? But he really makes some people mad because what he's done is he's merged traditional Christianity with themes that are very familiar to us, such as change your thinking, change your life. What you expect in the world, you're going to get. So he's really shifting the consciousness of Christianity in his world and around the world, quite frankly. And so he really makes traditional fundamentalist Christians quite angry because he has strayed from the set in stone message of sin and damnation and that kind of thing. And he's ventured into our territory a little too much for their liking. Not exactly the typical Sunday sermon. I actually record his talks. I watch them from time to time because he's fascinating. And actually, when I worked in Houston, I went there myself. I needed to see for myself what this was all about, and it was powerful. A little too big for my liking, and it was in a huge stadium kind of thing, but it was quite remarkable how his message was so relatable to so many people. So anyway, back to the thing. T.G. Jakes was talking to Joel Osteen, and he asked him, he said, you're garnering, so much attention, both positive and negative. He asked a specific question, how do you handle the haters? And Joel Osteen's answer blew me away. Matter of fact, I'm going to keep rewinding it, because what Joel said was, Bishop, I just go about my life assuming that everyone loves me. I just go about my life assuming that everyone loves me. And I kind of believe that's true. I've watched him be interviewed by many people. I've heard that when he travels, he is the most kind person, no matter who he's interacting with, no matter what. He doesn't care if you're Christian, to be nice to you. He doesn't care if you're powerful or simply a regular citizen. He doesn't care if you're rich or you're poor, if you're Democrat or you're Republican. He just doesn't care. He assumes you love him, and that's how he interacts with you. He's living the concept of Yoroshiku Onegashimasu. That's how he lives. That's how he interacts with people. I expect you will be kind to me. And so I'm going to thank you in advance, and I'm going to be kind to you first. And ever since I heard Joel Osteen say those words, I felt something shift inside of me. I assume people love me. I assume that everyone loves me. So I think our habit is not that. I think our habit is to hold back and wait, right? I'm going to hold back. Let me just see how this new person shows up. Let me just see who they are and what they're capable of first. Let's see if they're honest or reliable or whatever, trustworthy, before I open up and be too friendly or loving. Let me see if they're polite or open. Let me just hold back. Let me meet them where they are. Let me see if this group that I'm approaching will open up and let me in, and let me see if I can be a part before I kind of move forward. And once they've passed the smell test, so to speak, then I'll be nice. Then I'll open up and be loving and friendly. I know I'm not the only one, right? Can you relate to that approach? We just hold back. But what if we did it differently? What if we took the Joel Osteen approach and just assumed that everyone loves you, and you just move forward in pure love? What if you hugged first, and complimented first, and invited first, and smiled first, and offered our hand first? What if we trusted people first, and trusted ourselves, and trusted Spirit to handle whatever the interaction would be? What if we instantly claimed common holy ground in the absolute knowing that the spiritual truth is oneness? But Laine, people might take advantage of me. People might cheat me. People might hurt me or reject me or leave me out. They might think I'm weird or needy or just too much. People don't want love. They're wary of someone who's too friendly. You're crazy, Laine. I don't know. Over Thanksgiving weekend last fall, I had a dream. I had a vivid dream, and I journaled about it. And the overall message of the dream was this phrase, lead with love. Lead with love. I took that meaning that instead of, leading with this self-protection, instead of leading with wariness about others, I should enter every situation and relationship coming from a heart of love. I had the clear signal just to live wide open in every instance. See, if we're worried about protecting ourselves, we don't have a clear understanding and consciousness of the idea that every single other being is God in form, right? I think Joel Osteen and the Japanese people actually, as a whole, would agree. And I think great spiritual teachers would also agree. See, I think Joel's attitude is anchored in spiritual truth. In his book, Practicing the Presence of Entirely Different Joel Goldsmith says this: God and man are one, And there is no way to love God without some of that love flowing out to our neighbor. And he goes on to explain, every idea in consciousness is a neighbor. Every idea in consciousness is a neighbor. Those neighbors, he goes on, who are part of our experience, find their way to us, and those who are not are removed. Those who are part of our experience find their way to us. Let us resolve loving our neighbor into a spiritual activity, beholding love as the substance of all that is, no matter what the form may be. As we rise above our humanhood to a higher dimension of life in which we understand our neighbor to be pure spiritual being, God governed, neither good nor bad, we are truly loving. Neither good nor bad. Because see, we're always judging everything. We judge everything as good or bad. But the reality is it's all God. Right? And How to Change Your Life, Ernest Holmes, a founder of our philosophy, devotes an entire chapter to the subject of personality. He says many things, but I'll share just one of his concepts. He says, the more you come to realize your true spiritual nature, the more you'll be able to let it flow through you and express as your personality. As your personality. Your personality is who you know you are and how you know yourself to be and how you express that individual nature with others. That's your personality. What if your personality was your true spiritual nature? If you know yourself to be your true spiritual nature, your highest self, having the same qualities as the one power, then your personality is love and balance and wholeness and perfection and joy and peace and creativity. Of course you'll be assuming that other people love you if that's who you know you are. Who doesn't love all of that, right? So if you know you can consistently show up as those qualities, it's easy to claim holy ground common with others, because no matter what the other person throws into that shared experience, no matter what they throw, you're going to stay poised and consistently projecting your true self. There's a phrase I invite you to learn, and Lori Salvador will tell you, my jaw dropped open because there's this phrase that says, I am the place where God shows up. And that was one of the songs she played in the prelude music. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God shows up means that wherever I go, God is there. And it is common holy ground because the other person showing up is God too. And you know what? Joel Osteen definitely has haters. We all do. We all do. There's people who try to throw us off our game or, pull us down to their level or whatever they decide to do, whatever gets our dander up, But if we're practicing the presence of God on a regular basis, if we know we are the place where God shows up, we can stand on that common holy ground and show patience and kindness and compassion and keep inviting them to join us where we stand. They might be dancing all over the place, but I stand here on common holy ground, and I invite you to join me. Joel Goldsmith emphasizes that nobody can ever harm us. There is only one self with a capital S, and we are each individuations of that one self. God is never harmed. On a human level, it appears that dishonest acts and thoughtless words could inflict harm on others. But always in the end, it will be found that the one inflicting is the one that's greatest injured than the one that it's pushed towards. See, our job is not to fear receiving dishonesty and thoughtlessness. Our job is to watch our own consciousness and make sure that we are an avenue, a flow of divine love going out from us. And we take a stand as such. Here is the place where love and acceptance and compassion and peace and goodness and joy shows up. I've staked my claim on this holy ground, and I invite you to stand here with me and make it common holy ground. There's an old Sunday school song, I know I sang it, maybe you sang it too. It says, I shall not be moved. Just like a tree planted by the water, I shall not be moved. I shall not move from this common holy ground. Whether you consider it your ground or not, that's up to you. But I'm going to stand here and know the truth. And I will declare when I meet you that this is where I stand. I stand here with an open heart. I stand here with a loving expression. I stand here with a spirit of generosity. I stand here in absolute forgiveness for my shortcomings and my missteps and my falterings, and I stand here in forgiveness of yours. I stand here in honor of whoever you are and however you show up. This common ground is big enough for your religious beliefs, your personal convictions, your fear, your pain, your celebrations, your sacred ideas. This common ground is big enough for all of it. That's my outlook on life. Well, how did I get there? I think it's because when I was young, I was kind of forced to make a really wide circle of love. You know, my inner wise self took me into some really interesting career choices when I first got out of college. When I first left college, my first job was at a women's prison, where I worked with criminal element from everything from petty offenders to murderers, actually. Very interesting job. Then I left there and I went to work in food stamp eligibility with some of the abject poor in our community. I worked with people that needed help today, right now. They needed some help. So I worked with homeless. I worked with HIV positive men at the height of the AIDS crisis. Then I left there and I went to work with the mentally ill. These were inpatient adult mental health patients that were having such an upset in their mental health, they were in the hospital, and I did mental health work with them. Then I left there and I worked with creative students, and I'm not talking about nice little Monet painters, I'm talking about the kind of creative students that were dressed in head to toe black and tatted up and piercings and mohawks and things that were very scary at that point to most of the people that were in my life. I worked with students from all over the world who showed up in burqas and hijabs and spoke very little English, you know, but I had to find common ground. I had to work with groups of people that everyone else found quite unlovable and unrelatable. And I was challenged to widen my circle of love bigger and bigger and bigger. And I believe that I was unknowingly preparing myself to meet all of you in ministry. But I learned that I could love, I could look another person in the eye and find common ground no matter how different they were from me. I could figure out how to have a helpful conversation with them. And back then, I didn't know the spiritual significance of what I was learning. I didn't get it. I do now. But once I found the science of mind, I got it. I got it because Ernest Holmes says the happy outlook on life is always constructive, meaning a happy outlook is always building something. The understanding heart is filled with sympathy and helpfulness towards all. This is my favorite line. An evolved soul judges no one, condemns no one, but realizes that all are on the road to experience, seeking the same goal, and that each must ultimately find his home in heaven. An evolved soul judges no one and condemns no one. That's a hard ground to stand on, I'm telling you. But that points out that our job is to evolve our own souls. So I invite us to be a community of individuals who claim this common holy ground for everyone. Let us not judge anyone else, condemn anyone else. Let us realize that everyone is on their own individual road, having unique experiences, but seeking the same goal. Seeking the same goal, happiness. Seeking the same goal, acceptance. Seeking the same goal, love and belonging. Compassion. Our invitation is to create a space right here in this room and in a few weeks in this other room down the road, a space where others can come and stand with us on this common holy ground and start reaching those goals with us. Happiness and compassion and acceptance and kindness and love. And I'll end with this. Kent Keith He's a man. He was born in 1949 in Brooklyn. He, like me, he was like a little nomadic kid. He lived all over the place. He lived in Nebraska and California and Virginia and Rhode Island, Hawaii, and he eventually entered Harvard, because I think moving around makes you smarter, I'm just saying. He went, and then after Harvard, he was a Rhodes Scholar to the University of Oxford. So he's a smart guy. And he went on to have a successful career as a CEO of several nonprofits and corporations, a great attorney. He's a high-level state official. And he's also a philosopher. And his best-known work, out of all the things he did, was a little poem he wrote in undergrad school called The Paradoxical Commitments. And it's a poem that he wrote, and 20 years later he turned it into a book. But in 1997, Mr. Keith learned that his poem, The Paradoxical Commitments, had hung on the wall of Mother Teresa's children's home in Calcutta, India. Many, many people attribute this work to her, that actually what Mr. Keith did it. And I don't think he minds because of her fame. His message is really known far and wide. When I first came to the Center for Spiritual Living, one of the things I did was join a choir. I wish we had a choir. We kind of do, but y'all just sit out there. I sang in the choir, and I sang under the direction of the now Reverend Eric Odell. And he led us in singing Kent Keith's words to music, and it's one of the first songs I sang in his teaching. And this message really speaks to me this morning. So he says so much that I want you to hear it. I'll let you see this version of the Paradoxical Commitments on this video, and it is a paraphrased version of it. But if you'll play the video, that would be great. Do it anyway. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you're kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you're successful, you will win false friends and some true enemies. Be successful anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years building today, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you've got, and it may never be enough. Give them your best anyway. In the final analysis, it's between you and God. It was never between you and them. So whatever you do is between you and Spirit. It was never between you and them anyway. So stand on holy ground. Do good, be successful, be honest, think big, fight for underdogs, build great things, help people, and give the world the best you've got. Yoroshiku Onigasamas. And so please.